Today we're going to take a look at an interesting game called Alice Gear Aegis CS Concerto of Simulatrix. I think it's pronounced Aegis, that's what they say in the game. It caught my attention because I noticed the game's artwork was done by Fumikane Shimada, the same person behind Strike Witches, and basically anything that combines military and cute girls. His thing specifically is Mecha Musume, or Mecha Shoujo, or whatever you want to call it. And that's exactly what we have here with Alice Gear Aegis CS. Girls and mecha elements combined. Basically, it's girls in mech suits battling each other. And it's pretty fun, and I had a great time playing it. The battles are fast-paced, and different weapon types and equipment keep gameplay varied and interesting. There's a very large spectrum of girls with different looks and personalities, each with their own story, even if the stories are a bit simplistic. And if the amount of different characters wasn't enough, there's a bit of fan service with various unlockable and purchasable accessories and outfits. The game was provided to me by P-Cube, so thank you very much. I've got the PS5 version here. There's also a PS4 and Switch version. And I'm sure you're wondering, since I get these questions all the time, whether the PlayStation versions are censored. The answer is yes. It's actually really disappointing. The Switch version is as the developers intended. It's weird because in Japan the PlayStation games did not have any changes done to them. And also the game is rated T on the Switch, so there's nothing too saucy going on here in the first place. It's just Sony being Sony, I suppose. I recommend typing Alice Gear Aegis Censored into YouTube, and you'll find a good video from Censored Gaming that shows exactly what has been altered. Basically, one outfit has more of the character's back covered up, while another outfit has been removed from 6 characters, and it's also back coverage related. Are we seriously moving into an era like in Victorian times, where it's like, oh no, there's an ankle visible? It's like, yeah, it's strange. To P-Cube's credit, they did post on their Twitter that these changes were happening to the PlayStation versions before release, and they even showed some video clips of the changes, so you know exactly, what's going on. Unfortunately for me, I accepted the PS5 review code before this news was posted, so yeah, honestly, I'm a little bit annoyed because had I known, I'd obviously have chosen the Switch version, but I'm just glad I didn't pay for the censored version. Perhaps I should just get the Switch game and then play it, from here on out, but anyways, the rest of the game is the same when it comes to gameplay and story and all that, so censorship of the PlayStation games aside, I really like the game, so let's get into the review, and then you can see what's what. But before we get into the review and the story, I want to talk about the sponsor of this video, NordVPN. They've supported the channel for a while now, and I'm glad because I'm quite the fan of their services. NordVPN is a fast and secure VPN with more than 5,600 servers in 60 countries. Right now, you can get an exclusive deal through my link at nordvpn.com/ysn. What you get is 4 extra months when you get a 2-year subscription. Check the link in the description or the pinned comment. I use NordVPN for a bunch of different things, and I've mentioned those a couple of times before, like being able to watch or access geo-blocked content, connecting to public Wi-Fi securely, because NordVPN uses AES 256 encryption, or being able to connect to servers of other countries in multiplayer games. But a feature I didn't mention yet is MeshNet. It allows you to access your devices wherever in the world you are securely. There's a lot of things you can do with it, like routing your internet through another MeshNet connected device, playing LAN multiplayer over the internet, and file sharing. File sharing is what I've been using lately. Having access to terabytes and terabytes of game footage when I'm not at home is really great. It is equally great that I can also send files from my phone to a computer at home without having to upload them to something like Dropbox or Google Drive and then downloading them, when I come home. It's not just a phone to PC thing though. When it comes to tech, I'm not on a specific side or camp. I regularly use a PC, an M1 MacBook Air, an iPhone 14, and a Samsung S7 Plus tablet. So being able to easily share and transfer files between all of them is just really convenient. And for someone who is a, quote, content creator, it just makes life a little bit easier. Again, that's 4 bonus months on top of a 2-year subscription if you go through my link, nordvpn.com/ysn. And the great thing is that it's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Check it out, and now let's get back to the review. So, what's the story? Alien automatons invaded and took over Earth, and humanity fled the planet. Eventually, it was discovered that certain girls can make use of something called emission energy, which allows them to control Alice Gears, which is those mecha bit things that allow them to fly around. Sounds familiar if you're into Strike Witches, of course. They call these girls actresses for some reason. In this game, it's been centuries since all that happened, and things are relatively peaceful. In this era, various companies started competing against each other when it comes to making stronger gear. Companies also recruit actresses from each other because they want to have the best chance of winning, because there's like tournaments and stuff, and that's basically the story here. You're following how the girls go through the tournament there. That's the gist of it anyways. The game is described as being a 3D battle arena game. Seems like an accurate way of describing what's going on here. I'm not familiar with the genre, but surely there must be like, Gundam games, for example, that fall under this category too. Anyway, the arena is technically the shape of a cylinder. Battles are always a 1 versus 1 affair, whether it's a legit 1 versus 1 fight or 3 versus 3. It's still one at a time, with the difference being that you're able to switch between characters in a 3 versus 3 fight. You're always permanently locked on to your opponent. You have a normal attack, which can be charged for higher power. If you're close up, you can also do melee attacks. Blocking is a thing too, which is probably something I should do one day. And you also have special attacks, support attacks, and 2 more attacks that depend on what kind of gear your character is wearing. There's actually a decent amount of things you can do in battle, and I think that keeps things quite interesting. The type of weapon dictates your playing style quite a bit. There's a gun that shoots fast and in small bursts. It's quick and easy to learn as a beginner. There's also bazooka type weapons, which obviously deal a lot of damage, but they are a lot slower. Rifles I found a bit more difficult to deal with. With that I mean both using and going up against them. Eventually you'll learn that there's like a rhythm to it, but you'll often see your shots dodged at first. The range is great, and when you do hit something, it does deal a lot of damage. Now let's get to what I call secondary attacks. Those are the ones that are dependent on what gear your characters are wearing. There's a lot of different ones. Some will send out a pod that sits around and shoots while you can, fly around and attack from a different angle. Others shoot rockets. There's actually a lot of different things to choose from when it comes to equipment. You can mix and match various bits also. You aren't stuck with whatever the character comes with. In fact, when you start out first, you're going to have to battle with generic equipment. Only after earning money winning fights will you be able to buy stuff. And since I'm me, I wasted a lot of money on alternative outfits and cat ears. Sorry, I mean invested, because I think that was worth it. Another fun thing is that equipment can be recolored, left as is, or automatically matched to the character's color scheme. You can also use the right analog stick for special attacks. Left and right brings in a team member for some supporting attacks. Forward does a special melee attack, and all of those use up a bar of this meter, which you can find here at the bottom right. And if it's all full, you can unleash a big special attack by pressing down on the right analog stick. This meter fills up fast, so make sure to make use of these attacks whenever you can. Your health bar is located on the bottom left, and your opponent's is on the top right. When you do damage, or the other way around, you'll see that the bar goes down, obviously. But there's also a secondary color as well. That shows you how much you can heal up to. Healing can be done by switching characters. Switching often can be a good strategy, and you really want to do that if you're hit by a large combo, since your health will probably be low, but often you'll be able to heal up to almost full again. Something that thankfully has an effect on battle is the environment. I thought it would just be like a visual thing, but you can hide behind floating bits of rock or various other things for strategic reasons. But they can also work against you, as, hitting opponents can be a bit more difficult too. There's various game modes. Story mode is the main one. After getting a very brief rundown on the story, like background information, you can select a character to go through their story, specifically. There's a grid of tiles. Essentially, you want to reach the end on the very right. The story is the same no matter which path you take, but each tile has a symbol that means something. Most are fights, and there's also predetermined points where you'll get cutscenes. The cutscenes are like visual novel style, by the way, and sometimes the girls will address you specifically because you're some sort of captain character, so... Anyways, you'll see when you play it. I think it's supposed to give a little bit of a dating sim-ish vibe. I'm not sure, something like that. Some fights are 1-on-1, while the tournament battles are always 3 versus 3. Treasure chests can have items like costumes or accessories. If you get something you already have, it automatically gets sold. It actually makes most economic sense to not buy the outfits or whatever until you completed the entire character story mode. But I know how it is. When the game essentially gives you a big Lucchini, you just have to buy the cat ears and get her the finest clothes. And unfortunately, a PS5 version doesn't have all the outfits, but anyways, I already talked about that. Everything you earn or buy in story mode carries over onto the other game modes as well. There's a couple of different single player modes, if you just want to do something very specific. And there's also multiplayer, which is, there's like a ranked and an unranked thing. I didn't have a chance to play multiplayer. There wasn't anybody playing before the release date, as you may imagine. At least not when I tried it. I don't know, maybe it didn't even work because, I don't know. There was just a lone figure standing around, and yeah, that's all that happened when I did multiplayer. Let's take a look at the graphics. Overall, I wouldn't say that Alice Gear Aegis stresses the PS5 too much. Everything runs at 60 FPS no problem. The graphics definitely are not what I'd call next gen, but there's some good and even really nice bits here and there. The good points first. I like the character models. Fumikana Shimada's art style comes across very well. I like the animations during the cutscenes. They are very dynamic, and I like that the characters move around a lot, even though the mouth movements aren't great. And you can see that the characters share animations, and you can notice that repetition. Battle effects are good too. While not being super flashy, it is very easy to tell apart the various kinds of attacks, which I'm very thankful for. The menu animations are pretty good too. I quite like diagonal design properties, since even when not in motion, they still convey motion and a sense of animation. More so when there's actual movement. It fits the high-tech and fast-paced theme of the game, though the menu is perhaps just a little bit simplistic. Some not so great graphical things are low polygon and low res environments. Not such a big deal when you're fighting since you aren't focused on it, but it's not great. I also think the shading is just too simple. The characters look a bit too bright and flat. You really notice that in the cutscenes. While the amount of low points is less than the good points, these are all very noticeable, like throughout the game, like no matter what you do. I mean, it's obviously not anywhere near a AAA game in terms of graphics. None of these games usually are. So overall, I think it's acceptable for what it is. Though I think, the shading is probably the worst. It just looks too flat, I think. When it comes to sound and music, I thought Alice Gear Aegis was pretty good. The music fits the theme, and to be honest, nothing really stuck out to me, but that can also be a good thing. Sound effects are also appropriate, with the shooting sounds being reasonably satisfying. Overall, I'm having a good time with this game. I like that it isn't too hard. Occasionally, I'll lose a match here and there. There's decent fan service. I don't need to dedicate huge stretches of time to play it. I can just do a few fights here and there. Makes completing all the girls' stories a more realistic and appealing proposition. I also like that I don't have to dedicate myself to like a huge story or anything like that. Sometimes you just want to play something without, there being anything too complicated going on. As long as you know what to expect and you generally like what you see, I think you're going to have a good time playing Alice Gear Aegis CS. Please consider getting the Switch version instead, if you can. When it comes to these matters of game alterations, money speaks, after all. I hope you found that interesting and informative. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.